Hello, all. I am back on. It is 9:15 p.m. here in Florida. How are you all doing? So earlier we did a cooking stream where we cooked dinner live. So tonight we are going to do our first live art stream. I love doing art. So tonight we are going to be painting this backpack. We're going to be starting this. I already drew Stitch. This is Stitch from Disney's Lilo and Stitch. So I already drew Stitch onto the backpack, and I went ahead and also drew the child from the Mandalorian onto the backpack. So if any of you are familiar with the child, that is Baby Yoda, or the child from the new show, The Mandalorian, which is that new Star Wars show, which has been streaming on Disney Plus. So I love that show. I've become really obsessed with the child. So I went ahead and sketched the child onto the lower part of the backpack here. And I've also been very obsessed over the years with Disney's Lilo and Stitch. So I went ahead and sketched out Stitch on the top part of the backpack. So we're going to try to figure out with painting what's going to look good. So I'm trying to situate this so you will be able to see what I'm doing. Let me try to turn it like this if that's easier. So I'm trying to figure out what paint is going to look good for this part of the backpack here. So I'm thinking maybe this color might look good for this part here. So let's go ahead and start by taking a little bit of this color and putting some of it onto this mixing area here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this product here, which is called Liquitex. It is a product that you mix into paints that helps to change the density of the paint. So this one is going to slow the drying time of the paint. So I'm going to take that this Liquitex and I'm going to add it into or onto the green paint. So I added a little bit. I don't even like to mix it. I just like to let it kind of like sit on top of it. So we already have Stitch sketched here on the top of the bag, and we have his hands kind of like, I don't know if you could see that, like on the flap here. And then we have the child here from the Mandalorian there. So I want to kind of make sure you can see this. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is focus on probably the outer section of Stitch. So I really want this to be like a very bright bag, basically. So I'm using these bright colors, and also Stitch, like I think the movie like takes place, it's supposed to be like Hawaii or something. So I want the background to be kind of like tropical looking, if that makes sense. So we're just adding this green color as the base around Stitch. I want the scene to be kind of like tropical looking, like a Hawaii type of scene. And because we are painting on, this is kind of like a denim material, because we are painting on denim, we have to kind of saturate the color. So that way we kind of see like a thick color payoff here because we have a lot, the fabric is very dense and it's way the fabric is kind of threaded on the backpack. We need to make sure we have enough color product to basically saturate the fabric. And you also have to keep in mind that as this dries, the color payout is not going to be as vibrant as this. So we probably will end up having to do more than one coat because we want it to be vibrant. A lot of times we don't get to see that until the bag is dry. So we may not get to see, as, dense as we want this to be until maybe the next day we can kind of get an idea. But at the same time, working with acrylics, they do dry pretty quickly. I have added a Liquitex solvent to the paint that is supposed to slow the drying time. But at the same time, we have to work pretty quickly. You won't get that much with streaking with acrylic paints. I guess you could technically work with oils on this type of fabric, but I mean, acrylics are kind of the go-to, I think. And you have so many solvents today that you can mix into the paint in order to kind of slow down the drying time. That's what this one does. It slows down the drying time of acrylic paint, which is pretty quick, actually. Let me just make sure my internet is working. Okay, so far my internet is working, which is good. So for anyone tuning in, it is 9:22 at night here in Florida, and we are just doing a art stream here. I love doing this in the evening anyhow, so it's a nice little hobby of mine to do. So we are just kind of trying to go around Stitch's ear here. I was kind of wondering what color to do, especially around the background of Stitch, because Stitch is usually blue, and originally I was thinking red to kind of make the blue pop, but I'm thinking I kind of want to do like a tropical scene because Stitch, that's where Stitch resides. He's in like Hawaii. So we're going to, at least I think he's in Hawaii. So we're going to try to make this kind of like a tropical background here. I'm trying to get the paint a thick consistency, but also keeping in mind that this is acrylic paint and we are working on kind of like a denim fabric. So we want to kind of build it up, but also we don't want, I guess, it to like flake off because we're dealing with acrylics. But it's mostly, the problem is the type of fabric that we are working with. We're not working with a canvas or, like a parchment or something like that. So we're working with this denim backpack material. We're just slowly going around his ear. Like that. Again, we can clean up this area afterwards with either an Illustrator brush or with paint with a very fine brush. I'll kind of decide what I want to do with that. I'll probably end up doing both. He was just traced out with a pen, and then I went over some of the errors of reconstructing him with just a permanent marker. And then the bottom is going to be the child from the Mandalorian. And what's a reason I chose this combo is because they're both my favorite characters, but they actually look quite similar. They are both from space, I think, and they kind of have similar features. So Disney's Lilo and Stitch, and then Disney's the Mandalorian, and the child is just such a cute um, character. It's really the reason I watch the show. So we are going around the ear, trying to get kind of like a sharp edge around the ear. And then we're just kind of like brushing downwards here, kind of trying to keep in the same motion that we've been working in. I'm kind of trying to keep in mind how many coats we've done here. I don't want to oversaturate a particular area, but I also don't want to forget um, to give, a double or third layer to a specific area that I'm working on. So I'm hoping this was a good color choice for the background. I'm not quite sure yet. So far, I'm liking it. I want it to be very vibrant, but I also want it to kind of make sense with the character. So, in keeping in mind that Stitch is seen in like kind of like a tropical environment with like palm trees and a beach, if we work with a color like this, it will be easier to go back in possibly with a finer brush and paint in, scenes of palm trees or that type of detailing. If we go straight in with like a very dark blue, like to like simulate the sky, it may be more difficult to then paint in that detail that we want to add in. So again, I could already tell that that acrylic paint is starting to dry. And when I paint this in, it's kind of like in kind of like a tapping motion. So we want to make sure that the strokes are nice, but also that the saturation is good. So we are kind of just patting that color in. And basically what we're trying to do right now is to create a nice base for the bag. Hoping there's good enough light there for you to see that. So the consistency is looking pretty good in terms of, how thick we're laying the paint. And I like this brush. It's pretty easy to work with. The longer handle gives me a lot more control over where the paint is going. So I just take a step back, see how that, using my gingerbread here as a base, kind of see where the saturation is. I could kind of tell where we need more paint, and you can kind of tell when you step back, at least from my angle, where maybe I've missed a second or third layer of the paint. We're working with acrylic paints, and even with that solvent that we have added in to dilute the product. Um, we really are looking at maybe at most 3 layers of paint, because working with acrylics, it's going to start really to come off the bag. So the consistency that you're seeing is with the solvent added in to the acrylics, which is supposed to thin the paint and also make the drying time a little bit slower. So I've got that mixed in, and it's still drying pretty quickly. You can kind of see there how I'm trying to add in that paint. And you also have to keep in mind this is a backpack, so this is not going to lay, really like a tight um, pull on it. It's going to move because it's a backpack. So you have to keep in mind that as the paint bends, you're going to see it break a little bit. And that's going to be normal, anytime you're, doing a hand painted item. You're going to probably, especially if it's an item you tend to wear over a long period of time, you're going to need to probably do touch ups over time, especially if it's like a wear and tear type of item. If you couldn't expect to make a backpack and then to wear it for a year and maybe not go back and do some touch ups, but because you have to keep in mind we're dealing with fabric, it's going to bend basically like that. So we're trying to lay out the paint with a thick consistency so that it dries nice and vibrant. But you also have to keep in mind you are working with acrylics, so we have a small window of drying time. Like if I touch this already, it's really not coming off that much. So I'm wondering if I even want to go up this far. I will. It's just that I need somewhere to hold on to. I'm trying to pay attention here to where I'm layering. One layer of paint is not going to be enough for working with this type of texture. This is it's like a denim fabric backpack, but it's actually pretty thick, this fabric. So I am really, when I'm laying this paint on, I'm really trying to get that paint on there. And it's kind of like, it's not like a brush motion, it's more of like a tap motion. And then I flip the brush around. And then that excess, I'm going to just drag it kind of in downward motions. Okay. So we're going to continue over here. I think it's okay at this point to go up to the curve of the backpack, because where my hand is holding onto, I have a pretty decent grip up here. So I think I'm going to be able to get in here right now. I would have to do it anyhow at some point, so I might as well do it now so that the paint is a little bit more even. So again, even here, you can kind of tell that it needs another layer. And then the top of the bag is going to end up bending a lot more, probably because of the backpack shape and when weight goes into the backpack. We could stop there and have the layering, like the line of the backpack, be like that. But I mean, in order to make it look a little bit sharper, I'm thinking we will go to the edge there. In other words, we could stop. Hello, Yongo10. Very nice to have you in the chat. Very vibrant color. You need to keep it top. I think you're asking if it to keep it tight. I mean, we want to keep the color, you know, a thick consistency. So for a couple of reasons, when this dries, it's going to not be as vibrant. It's just the nature of these acrylic paints. I mean, it tends to look really vibrant right now, but as it dries, it's just not going to be as vibrant as you see it right now. So we're trying to give it, you know, 2-3 layers as we work now to get it as vibrant as we can without seeing it kind of like flake off or break off. So I'm trying to get into this area here at the top of the backpack. I'm going to try to pull that up like that because I want to get into that crevice there. So we're just working on that area there. So it's kind of what we have so far. Try to get that angle there. Okay. So we've worked up to there. I do need to mix some more paint now. And this will also give this area a chance to dry. I'm seeing that I want this area up here to be really vibrant in terms of paint consistency. I want this area right here with this crevice to be pretty saturated with paint is what I'm trying to say. Because as it rolls, I want kind of like a light reflection there. And just smoothing out a lot of these strokes here before they dry. I mean, I have to keep in mind that as the bag bends, it's obviously going to, you know, you're going to see some holes basically in the paint. You get a drop of water. So the paint we're working with is this one right here, which is an acrylic paint. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get some more product out. I work with a little bit at a time because it does dry very quickly. And in order to extend the drying time, I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit of this Liquitex Slow Dry Blending Medium. It doesn't affect the color, but it changes the texture of the paint. So I just put a little bit of that right over the paint, not even mixing it in. I'm basically mixing it in every time my brush goes into the paint. And I'm going to continue to probably work in these areas, which are probably the most time consuming. So again, we're going to pull the paint, but this time we're going to turn our brush this way. And we're just going to continue making sure that the paint is saturated. Again, because of the type of material we are working with, you have to keep in mind that we are not working with canvas or a piece of paper. So we have to basically fill all the little gaps of the fabric so that we don't end up seeing like holes in the fabric once the paint dries. So right now I'm trying to get into these crevices. It's not too big of a deal, but trying to make it nice. And these are the crevices, you know, that of the fabric and the way it kind of lays over each other here. So yeah, working on this area here. So I'm literally just pulling that like that. So I've got too much paint there, so I need to kind of, which is not a big deal if that happens and you have too much paint, kind of just smooth it out. I'm doing right now, so my brush is picking up the excess, and then I'm literally just wiping it on other parts of the bag. Again, this area here needs more layering of paint, just so it's saturated. Oops, I got some paint on the counter. Okay, so now we're going to, let me see. I'm gonna leave that edge alone right now. I will have to go back there, but it's a little difficult to get into this section while this is still drying. So I don't mind going back to that area after it dries with in terms of like strokes because it's all in the crevice. But I do want to get around the ear because I don't want that to dry. I don't want this area to dry and then to do the ear because I feel it's going to look a little bit weird if I go back. I'd rather do it now. So I don't know if you could tell. This is what I'm talking about layering it. It needs to be thick, otherwise you're going to have spotting here. So I'm going in the crevice area. In makeup, you could probably refer to it as like tight lining, but I'm going to take the edge of my brush and just focus the edge along the ear, which is going to create a sharper distinction to the ear. And just pull the strokes back this way. I want, once we fill stitch in, I want the ear to really pop in terms of colors. So the more, tight lined we can make this area now, the better. You could always go back and touch this area up. But I want the area around stitch to be nice. So I'm going to go continue to tight line around his ear. Kind of a little bit of a hard area to get, so I'm probably going to use a smaller brush for this area. In a second, kind of switch off to a different brush. I'm trying to get as much of it as I can with this brush, just makes it easier for me than to go back with a smaller brush and get in there basically. Try to like lean it a little bit so that way I can get in here a little bit easier. So now I need to I keep putting paint in my hair, but that's okay. Why not? So I have a smaller brush here. It's a very fine brush. There's ones that are even finer than this, but I find that they are kind of annoying to work with, honestly. So I'd rather not deal with brushes that are even finer than this unless the detail really requires it, because they are annoying. So that area is a little time consuming, but I mean, the more, you know, we can get done of that, it just makes it easier. I mean, there's always going to be these parts of painting that is like these tight lining areas, but that's kind of what makes the work look sharper in the end. I mean, the better that this area comes out, the more that the color of stitch, once that's added in, is going to pop. So I'm just going to take my smaller brush now and kind of look at the saturation and see where the paint needs another layer where it's not even. So I can kind of tell that by taking a step back, and I can see where maybe I missed a second or third layer on the paint that I've already gone over once or twice. So this area here looks pretty even now. This area that kind of runs like this. I could try to fix a little bit this area here. Thank you so much, Kiddo Time. Nice to have you in the chat. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. So we've got on the top part, we've painted Stitch. This is Stitch from Disney's Lilo and Stitch. So we've sketched in Stitch here. And then on the bottom, we have sketched in, this is the child from the Mandalorian show, which is that popular new Star Wars show that's on Disney Plus. So the child is a pretty popular character right now, very cute character. And there's actually a lot of similarities between Stitch and the child. They look quite similar. They both have these ears and the shape of the head, and they're both from space. So I actually really love both characters, and I didn't choose them because of their similarities, but I just really liked both of them. And then when I drew them out, I realized that they are quite similar in their structure. So I think they'll be an interesting combo, and they're both from space. So in like a story type of sense to the art, I think it'll make sense having them both on the bag. I mean, you don't have to. Your art does not have to make sense, of course. But we've got it covered from every angle, I think. So I'm just kind of getting over this area again here and making sure that this area is got a proper layering of color here, and so that it's vibrant. And then keeping in mind that Stitch is seen in the movie kind of like in a Hawaii type of environment, we want to, I kind of want a background here that's like aquatic or like Hawaii-like kind of. Also, because we're going in with this lighter green, that's going to give us a lot more ability to paint in, palm trees or any scenery that we want to go in and paint in with like a finer brush. We will be able to. If we went in with like a very dark red that pops, which I was originally thinking of doing because Stitch is blue and then red would pop along it, we won't have as much ability to like add in like a palm tree or different scenery. So we're working with this lighter base. We could always add in more color and build that way. I'd rather build color than have so much in the beginning, even though obviously this seems like a lot of color. It's a very vibrant green color. But again, we're trying to make it vibrant because as it dries, it's going to look less vibrant, basically. tell here needs more. I'm able to tell by taking a step back. It allows for me to see where the layering of the paint is missing saturation, basically. So I can basically tell if the paint is missing a layer. And also, I mean, because this is the top part of the bag, naturally the way a backpack is going to roll as it bends, the this top part needs the most saturation if we don't want the color to kind of like break through. And I've worked with this before, so I haven't had any problems with like it, full on breaking off or anything like that. So I haven't had any problems with this before. I've worked on it with sneakers and that type of stuff. And we're working with a solvent anyhow, which is um, lightening the density of the paint, but still making it so that I can cover the denim. And I'm already, I don't know if you can tell, but the way I'm holding it, I'm starting to like pull on it with that roll as if the backpack is has weight on it. So going to, I think the saturation looks pretty good here. It looks pretty smooth. Let me see. The area around his ear actually looks like it needs a drop more paint. I don't know if you can tell, like right here, it looks like it needs a little more. So again, I'm just trying to blend the paint and the strokes here of the paint. So again, we're getting into like a tighter area here between the green paint and the left part of Stitch's head. So I'm trying to bend the fabric the best I can. I could have stuffed the bag. I've done that before too, but that kind of comes with its own flaws because I can actually bend it down like this, which I think will help to get into this area actually. Okay. It's kind of like an awkward area. So again, I'm kind of just going to get close to it. This will give me more control to get into that area. Thank you so much, Yongo. Nice to have you here. Okay. I know it's a little time consuming, this area around his head, but we kind of want to get this area done with just so it's done and so that all the paint kind of blends together with the other paint. I think also with the tight lining, once this area is done, I think it always feels so much easier to do the rest of the art. It's the most time consuming. Also, when we're doing Stitch's face, when we're actually filling in Stitch, again, it'll be a little bit time consuming when we tight line the inside of his face with that blue. But also we're going to do when we get to his face, we're going to do a shadowing. So we're going to take, what that means is we're going to take paint that's lesser in color. We're going to actually make his head kind of three-dimensional so that he pops out of the bag. We're not going to leave him kind of like flat on the bag. So I don't know if you can tell what I'm doing. I'm brushing upwards. I'm doing this just for more control because I want this line around his head to really be as sharp as possible. And by sharp, I mean I want the black line to be, not to look like you rushed with it, basically. That is the area that, of course, I am guilty of in the past rushing with because it's a time-consuming area. You kind of like you want to get on to the rest of it. So I've got a really detailed little spot here. I'm going to try to get, it's this little crevice that's right here. That's right where his ear borders his head. So I got it pretty good. I think if I had a finer brush, I could go in there and get that spot a little bit more vibrant. We can do that in the end, but that's really for touch-ups, which we're going to have touch-ups anyhow because we're going to be, filling him in. So kind of see the vibrancy of the color. And then keep in mind, as the backpack bends, we want that fabric to look nice. The goal is not to make it look like it's a print, like you bought a bag that was like a print of an image. You want it to look like it was hand painted, but at the same time, you want the paint to look smooth. So it's, we don't want the paint to look as if we got a backpack that just has a print that was kind of like put onto the bag with a machine. We don't want it to look that smooth. We want it to look, which in reality is really not possible dealing with paint, but we want it to look smooth, but we do want it to look hand painted. So again, I'm going to now tight line this area right here. So we're just kind of going around this area here. What's funny is when I use the viewfinder of the computer, it allows for me to kind of see the density as well. So I can kind of tell that in this area here, it needs a little bit more saturation. But also, there's this time-consuming area right here of the top of his head right here. So again, it's kind of like a little bit of a time-consuming area right here. So again, another little time-consuming area here. I want to make sure I don't paint over his hair. And kind of trying to pull the fabric here so I can get into this area right here. Got a little bit too much paint. And we can touch that up and make it a little bit cleaner once we deal with the blue paint. Kind of want to finish this, especially today, this time-consuming area right here. Kind of want to know that his hair is done. So that area is done now with his hair, at least, preliminary wise. I'll just kind of take the paint and bring it down this way a little bit so that when we continue over there, we don't see such a big paint difference in this area. So I'm going to take my larger brush here, and I'm going to go back into this paint. It's paint that I have left over anyhow. And I'm just going to start to go over this area here that I can tell is not as saturated as I would like it to be. I can tell from the viewfinder where I need some more paint. kind of see where I did that paint right there. You can see it's a little bit more vibrant than the rest of it. So I want to make sure that that is blended nicely into this other area. Drop of water here. Okay. So we're working on the green part, obviously, green part, and kind of trying to tell through the viewfinder where that saturation is of the paint and where I need a drop more color. I can kind of tell by the viewfinder I need a little bit more here. Makes it a little bit easier to see it actually than me actually directly looking at it. Hi, how are you? How are you doing? Remind me if it's morning there, right? Like early morning? Super early in the morning? Maybe? Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you being here. So we're just painting Lilo and Stitch. Well, right now we're only painting Stitch basically. So this is Stitch from Disney Lilo and Stitch movie. And then on the bottom we've not painted, but we've traced out already or drawn out with a pen and then a marker the child from the Mandalorian show. So that's Baby Yoda, and that is Stitch. And they are two of my favorite characters. And what's interesting about them, and I loved them before, but what's interesting about them, like shape wise, they look very similar. Like they both have these like big ears, and they both have like this shape of the head here. And then like story wise, they're both like from space. So this it's an interesting concept how, some of my favorite characters are also kind of a similar theme. So we're just painting here. What we're doing is we're making sure, whoever's tuning in, that the saturation is consistent. So what does that mean? We want to make sure that, if we gave one area of the bag, 3 coats of paint, that we've given all areas of it 3 coats of paint, because that's going to make it look more thick. Basically, it's going to make that color pop better. Now your sketch. Thank you so much. So what I did was I went in with a pen first, because unfortunately a pencil will not show up on this is kind of like a denim, like denim jeans. Thank you so much. So this is like what is this? This is like denim. It's kind of like denim fabric on a backpack. So we could not, draw this out with a pencil. We had to start with a pen. But that's okay. I don't want you guys to be scared about using pen on bag, because the thing is, especially if you're going to be painting it, you don't have to be that worried about it, in terms of whether you mess up or not, because you could always go back with paint and clean it up. So I hope you guys are all liking this so far. If you like this video, please give the video a thumbs up. please go ahead and give the video a like, a thumbs up. It really helps me out. It helps YouTube know to send this stream out. But yeah, we're going to continue. We have a little bit of green paint here already, mixed out. So I don't want to let that go to waste. So we're just going to continue till this is used up to make sure that the area that we've worked on so far is consistent in the texture of the paint. So I can kind of tell when I look through the viewfinder where we need more paint. So this is what we've got so far. Thank you so much. I appreciate you watching. Let me just put this like this for a second. I want to check what our internet connection is. Let me see. I have my phone over here just because I feel like I have better internet connection. So we have 3 bars. That's pretty good. Okay. So we're going to go over here and we're going to kind of make this a drop darker in this area. I want this to be as sharp as it can be around the ear. I want it that I want the character to really like pop. In order to do that, it's the most time consuming part, but it really pays off. In order to make sure this character is going to really pop, after everything we do, the shadowing and filling him in, you need to make sure that you make this area, what's called like the tight lining around the character, as sharp as possible, as clean as possible. That way we see the distinction between the character drawing and the green paint. We want that to be as clean as possible. What's funny? I never watched much of Star Wars. I remember years ago I saw one of the movies and it was like a field trip or something like that. And I watched one years ago and I never was a huge fan. But I watched 2 of the movies. I think it's the more recent Star Wars movies. I'm pretty sure it is. It's because it's with the new girl that they cast in it. And I liked the newer ones a lot better. But since it's so popular now at Disney, and you have that Disney Star Wars Land, I've never seen it before. And when I go to Disney Star Wars Land one day, I would like to know what's happening, and I would like to know like what the characters' names actually are and understand like the storyline. So now that my semester is over, I have the time to like go back and actually watch all of the movies. But I've been watching the Mandalorian show, which is kind of like I guess it's like a takeoff on Star Wars or a continuation of Star Wars. So I've been watching The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. I've been really liking that show. The baby Yoda is just so cute. I already have so much baby Yoda stuff. I'm kind of like obsessed. So I really like that show. I like that it almost has that show, almost like a vintage vibe to it. The show almost feels, even though the technology is also new in the way they're filming it, it has a very like 80s feel to it, the show. So I really like that show. It's a little bit different, I think, than the movies. It's still the Star Wars theme of the show, but it's also got kind of like, it's funny at times, the show, but I am really liking the show. But I need to go back and have the patience to go back and watch all of the Star Wars movies basically from the beginning. But I love this show. Baby Yoda makes the show so cute. I remember I saw Baby Yoda in the first episode, and I'm like, okay, now I have to watch. And when I watched the first episode, I was like, what is this all about? Why do people watch this show? And then at the end of the first episode, spoiler alert, you see Baby Yoda, and I was like, now I know why people watch this show. It's like the Baby Yoda is just so cute. I mean, it's really cute. It's really, really, really cute. And now I understand why people watch the show. I don't know if people would watch the show if we didn't have Baby Yoda, basically. But yeah, so Stitch has always been one of my favorite characters. Um, so I'm a big fan of Lilo and Stitch. And now my next favorite character is the child. So I'm really liking the consistency of this green, how like it looks very thick, it looks saturated. Mickey versus Yoda. I have to choose Yoda, even though I love Disney, and I get that Mickey is like represents Disney. Like Mickey Mouse is like Disney World. That's why people go to Disney because and I'm wearing a Mickey. That's probably why you asked too. I just realized that in the viewfinder. So yeah, I like Mickey, but like as a symbol of like the parks and Disney. But I don't know. Mickey was never like my favorite character. I loved Stitch. What else do I like? I like Stitch. I like Yoda. Pooh is very cute. Yoda. Yeah. So apparently it's not like Yoda. Apparently it's like Yoda species or something like that. So like I actually Googled it. I wanted to know, is the child from the Mandalorian Yoda? And everyone's like, no, it's Yoda species and it's the child. It's like it's like the same species as Yoda, but it's not Yoda. It's like Yoda versus Simpson, like the Simpsons, like the show The Simpsons, the yellow cartoon. I never watched much of that show. I know it's like it's a very famous show, but I don't know, Yoda. I still choose Yoda. I still choose Yoda. Baby Yoda. I could say Baby Yoda because Baby Yoda is the cutest. Okay, so that consistency is looking pretty good. For some reason, when I look through the viewfinder, I feel like this area, yep, big Yoda fan for sure. I think this area needs more paint. What do you think? Like when I look in the viewfinder, I feel like this area looks a different consistency, and I don't know if I'm seeing it. I guess I'm seeing it, but when I look in the viewfinder, I am seeing that. So I'm going to put more paint here. I want to get these spots before it dries. Kind of see it in the viewfinder. I think that looks a little bit better. I think it's looking a little bit more. I think that saturation is looking a little bit better. Like I feel like the paint looks a little bit thicker now in those spots. I'm trying to see in the viewfinder. Like I see like this area. I'm just kind of trying to like brush downwards here to get this area saturated. Something doesn't look. It's funny how the viewfinder, when I look into the computer, I can see areas that I cannot see when I look at it. I see like an area right here. It's okay. We all are beginners at some point. We all are beginners. We all improve. That is just, in the words of the Mandalorian, it is the way. It is the way. It's such a funny line. There's like so many funny lines in that show. It's like, it is the way. This is the way. Oh, this is the way. And then there's a line in The Mandalorian where he's like, I have spoken. It's such a funny line, also. I like how those shows have like a comedy or comedic element to it. Like they're funny shows. I can see like an area here. I'm glad you like Yoda. I like Yoda too. So that consistency I think is looking pretty good. We've got a pretty thick consistency there. When I bend it in the light, it also allows for me to see in the viewfinder. I'm not just looking at you guys. I can see the viewfinder is allowing for me to kind of see the saturation of the paint and the way it's bending in the light. So I can kind of see where I need more paint. So I'm liking that consistency. I think it looks pretty good. The thing we have to remember with these paints, guys, is that we used acrylic paints. We're using, I'm trying to like move it a little bit because as this dries, it can get like air pockets and stuff. So I'm trying to move the fabric a little bit in places that I think the fabric is going to buckle as it paints. It's kind of an awkward thing because it's not a flat surface like a canvas. And you have to keep in mind it's a backpack and it's gonna have weight in it. So as the fabric literally bends, we're going to get, it's really not, it's always going to happen. We're going to have, where the fabric breaks a little bit and the paint, we start to see it buckle a little bit. So there's really nothing we can do about that. We can try to smooth it the best we can, to try to prevent that from happening. But we're doing the best we can to just blend out these colors. Your Yoda. So I bought this bag from a brand called American Apparel. It was super on sale. It was only seven. It was only $7 for the backpack that I bought off American Apparel. They had like a huge sale. And then I drew him and I drew him on. So, once you buy the paints and you invest in like a brush and your paints, you can, um, it's not that expensive to make yourself a backpack. So I can tell the consistency is pretty good. Pretty good. Probably not going to sell this one, guys. This one's for me because I wanted a backpack for myself. That way I can have one, when I go to Disney World and stuff like that. I've been looking at a lot of like the bags that they sell. They have a brand that Disney sells called that they collab with called Dooney and Burke. And their bags they're cute. Like it's like a designer handbag and it shows like, a print that's Disney inspired on it. But like their bags are pretty expensive and I kind of figured like if why don't I just make my own and kind of like all their bags can nothing against them. Some of them are nice, but like they all kind of look the same. And it's like if I'm gonna go to Disney, I might as well make my own bag basically. This is my second one that I have made of a Disney backpack. The other one I've worn quite a bit, so I wanted a new one, and I wanted one also now since the Mandalorian came out, so I can you know so I could work that character into the art. So I think that consistency is coming out really good. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just kind of looking in the viewfinder. Okay, so I'm going to put that here for a second. I kind of want this to dry for a second. I want to fix that area that I just poked. I don't know why I did that. This allows for me to kind of get a different angle to see what needs to be fixed here. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate when you watch my channel and my videos and you comment. That's such a great thing when you are in the chat. That way I can respond in real time. It's great having you. Just going to get a drop of water because I need some water. Water. Okay. Since you all seem to be enjoying this and you're here, I guess we will continue. Why not? So it's a good thing to continue, especially the green. Thing is, if I stop now, I mean, if we were to stop now, the problem is that we paint this tomorrow, then there's going to be a difference between this and this, basically. So I may do a little bit more. Let's see how much energy I have, basically. This is going to be over a couple days, guys. It's not going to be a one-day project. Let me get some more. Hopefully my internet connection is okay. I just saw something go across the screen that says your internet connection is unstable. So let me check my my phone real quick and let's see what my signal is over here. My signal is showing 3 bars and that warning went away, so I'm guessing it's okay. Yeah, tomorrow we'll definitely do more. I'm wondering, I mean, I think you're seeing me, right? You can see me? Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate having you here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. So I'm going to be back on tomorrow, guys, okay? So tomorrow I'll be back on around 6 or 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. I'll be back on for dinner stream. And then later on, like now, which is like, I think I came on at like 9 p.m. So 9 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. I'll be back on tomorrow to do more painting. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching and you commenting in the chat. It would not be the same if you were not here because then I would be talking to myself. You know, so I really appreciate you guys being here, being in the chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day, guys. So we're going to be back on tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow night, okay? Tomorrow night I will be back on tomorrow for this, okay? So, bye-bye. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow, okay? See you tomorrow. Bye.